So yeah, part two. Like I have just been ruminating on that and thinking about that and thinking about like how my maternal instincts kicked in very early and all of that. And so like, and you don't think about that when you're like kind of pushing things like this off onto a child. Like the child has adult mental things going on without the adult mental processing. And then you know they're kind of going through that same like identity crisis, and oh well, now I'm no longer needed, and all of that stuff. And as a teenager, it was much worse for me because like I didn't get to really do much outside of like take care of my siblings and clean, and like that's literally all I fucking know. I it just doesn't fucking make any sense, but whatever. um and so the thing that has kind of like been that main point in my brain is the fact that I was discarded, once I got like once I kind of like graduated, because then it was like, oh, the kids don't need you anymore. They can get themselves on and off the bus. I don't need somebody here all the time because now they're all old enough to kind of like care for themselves, because the youngest one was like in middle school at that time, um, that I had graduated. And so then it was just like, well, everybody can kind of like take care of themselves, and you're no longer necessary. And so then it was just like, now I'm stressed and like scrambling for survival because, now that I'm 18, nobody has to feed me, nobody has to, do anything for me. And I didn't know how to drive, I didn't have a job, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about life. I had to figure that shit out myself. And so I scrambled around to try to get away because it always became like this argument like, oh, you're no longer in school. Just like that whole argument when I was younger, it was like when I tried to express that I had too much responsibility and that this stuff was overwhelming, I didn't have the words to articulate it. And anytime I would say that I had a problem, like I mentioned like insomnia at one point, and then it was just like, oh, rebuke it in the name of Jesus and you'll be fine. Like that kind of shit. Because I grew up super fucking religious. And so then I realized like being discarded was like one of the most stressful points in my life. So after everybody was able to kind of care for themselves and like I had graduated high school, there was no, help with college or anything like that. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And actually that's actually a lie. I did say that I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was just not acceptable back then. Because I graduated in 2012. That was still the time where everybody was kind of being forced to have realistic job things. And all the things that I wanted to do had to do with art. And I was told that I couldn't do that. And so if I couldn't do art, I didn't know what I wanted to do because that was all I cared about. That was all of me was put into my artwork. In high school, I had taken a ceramics class. I had taken painting classes, even though I absolutely hated the painting. That teacher made me hate it because she's messing my shit. Anyways, but now I'm like scrambling, trying to figure out my life, not knowing anything. And I had tried to get a job before that, and it was there was always excuses. There was always like excuses for why I couldn't receive the help that I needed to kind of like further me as now the adult, but I could be easily threatened with like, okay, well, if you're not going to get a job or go to school, then you need to get out of this house. And it's just like you've given me no help. You've given me no blueprint, no nothing. I don't know what the hell it is that I'm supposed to do. Only thing that I know is I'm supposed to fucking get married at some point in my life and have kids. That's literally all I fucking know. And so, like, that was stressful. Nobody needed me anymore, but I was still, like, doing all of the fucking housework. And Like, nobody wanted to actually teach me the freaking skills. And so, yeah, I just kind of like realized that I was being discarded at that time because, like, I know I was no longer necessary. And so, once you're 18, then you don't really have to be there. And so then it's just like at any point they could just decide that you don't get to eat, um, you don't get to live there anymore, and then you will be a homeless 18-year-old. And being 18 as a woman, like, that sucks. Um, I remember like that being one of the most scary fucking times because at least before you could just be like, "Oh no, I'm 16," and then, most people would just be like, no," cuz they'll look at you lustily, but they won't touch you when they know that you're a minor for the most part unless they're bold. But then when you like get 18, then it's just like, "Oh, okay, now I'm just gonna like keep pressuring you until you give in because you're taught to like respect authority and people who are older than you. You're not allowed to say no or anything like that." And you know that was just one of those things. And mentally, I was older than what I was physically. And there was a major disconnect with that. That was an identity crisis in itself. And so that was kind of like traumatic for me because then it's just like at any point I could be like stuck on the streets as an 18-year-old being harassed by grown men. That was already happening. That was already happening. And honestly, the first time that I was touched physically by a grown man, I don't even know if I was 18 or 17. I have no idea. But it was very creepy and very disturbing, and I had to just keep that silent because I didn't want to cause trouble or read too much into things because oftentimes I would be told that my perception of reality was wrong. Even when I was like able to kind of like intuitively discern that this is not a very good situation. And so, yeah, basically blind obedience equals respect of authority, which is something that I am not teaching my kids. But yeah, my original plan was to basically do all the life things before ever settling down, which I absolutely hated that term because I didn't want to like stop living. And so, yeah, I wanted to travel, I wanted to do all that stuff. And yes, you could do all of that with kids, but like the position that I'm in right now, that's just not right now. And so, yeah, that was very stressful. And I'm probably not articulating it well. I'm probably jumping around, but whatever. This is my mind. My mind is in shatters, in stained glass shatters. Like I live in Alice in fucking Wonderland, and it's also the labyrinth at the same time. So, yeah, that was it. Like the being discarded because you're no longer necessary because there are no more small children and everybody can pretty much fend for themselves. It sucked ass. It was very stressful. And so I scrambled around to find the easiest way for me to live because otherwise anything could be taken away from me, even my ability to survive or the things that I needed for survival. And actually, there's a lot of instances where that was tampered with, but that's it for now. I just had to get that off my chest because I've been fucking stressed about that for the last few days.